Bill, can you hear me okay? You're on mute. I might have muted you. You'll have to unmute yourself.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Can you hear me okay?
I can. How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you. How are you?
Very well. How are you doing, Duncan?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm very good. So I'm recording this call, Bill, so that those customers of mine that can't, Vinich joined us, but there are other customers that wanted to watch it. Oh, it looks as though Lauren's going to join us as well. There are quite a few customers that wanted to join it, but aren't being able to. So I'm going to record it and then I'm going to make the recording available. Okay.
Sounds good.
Brilliant. So Bill, I was told that you are the cold email outreach copywriter extraordinaire. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Well, I think I'm fairly good at it. Yes, and I've been doing it for a lot of years now, so I've learned quite a bit over the years.
So tell us a little bit about your background first of all. Where did you come from? What's been the history or the story so far?
Well, briefly, I used to practice as a chiropractor. And I got into copywriting with writing my own marketing materials for my chiropractic practice, and realized I enjoyed the writing more than I did adjusting people. And plus, I'm, as you can see, I'm not young, so chiropractic can be kind of beat you up physically. So it was time to make a change, and I began to learn copywriting and thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I started to focus on email copywriting in particular because I like the challenge of conveying an effective message in a short space. A lot of copywriting is way too verbose, I think. In fact, just this morning, this is a good example. Just this morning, I got sucked into watching a video that, because, first off, it's relevant, this is a point I'll cover a little later, but, I've been having I run, and I've been having some issues with some back pain stuff, and this was a way, simple stretches to do, to help you with your back pain, all this. But they're selling a program, and the video ended up being 30 minutes long and promising to give you some ancient, unknown stretches to help you. And when you got to the stretches, they're like anything you can find in a 2-second search on YouTube. It just really aggravated me. Anyway, getting back to email copywriting.
It sounds as though the email was well written, though. It got you to register, yeah.
Well, it was well written, but it went on too long. It repeated a lot of the same points over and over and over again. And I guess, I don't know, part of it being a copywriter, you're aware of these kinds of things. And I guess to someone that's not familiar with the writing and the structure of an ad like that, they might find it compelling. I don't know. To me, it just went on entirely too long. Anyway, I met how you and I met. You were referred to me from Wavo.
Doreen, is that right? From Doreen and Anton.
With Wavo, but the guy do you know Anton?
Yeah, I know Anton, yeah.
Well, Anton's other company is Huron.
Yeah.
And that's how I originally got into cold email copywriting. It was through meeting Anton on Upwork. And this was about 4 years ago. And he wanted to know if I'd be interested in growing with the company. And I was like, yes, of course. I was just starting out. So I thought it was a chance to learn and to grow. And it proved to be the case. He gave me this sort of formula that he had learned himself about a structure for writing cold emails. and which really no longer is relevant. But at the time, it was, that was thought to be the best way of going about it. And I find it fascinating how much it's changed over the last several years.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I know it's an overused word, but I would say it's changed in the way of towards being more authentic.
Yeah.
Because the cold, it used to be you would start out with an email with like language like, oh, I'm not sure if you're the right person I should be speaking to, and things like that. And and then you end it with, if you're not the right person, can you refer me, or I'd appreciate if you put me in touch with who I should talk to. I mean, that now is really poor form. I mean, it used to be effective, but it isn't now, because now it kind of just shows you haven't done your research. If you have to ask that, it shows you don't know who you're writing to.
Yeah.
And to me, that one of that before the copywriting ever starts, as you know, Duncan, I'm sure the key to cold emails is your list first.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be a list that's relevant. I mean, I get contacted a lot with people that are like, oh, we just purchased a huge list. I'm like, well, that right there tells you this probably ain't going to work very well. Because purchase lists are going to have a lot of, dead emails in them, and they're not. You're going to be writing to an audience that's not necessarily interested in what you have to say. Whereas a curated list, where it's gone through by hand and picked out, it'll be smaller, but you'll have a lot more receptive audience.
Yeah.
Which is really, that's what it's about.
So we normally, we suggest that clients' campaigns shouldn't be any more than, first of all, 1,000 a month is plenty. And sometimes we get them, their campaigns can maybe only have a few hundred contacts in them, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 contacts. And that campaign can run quite a while. But what it allows us to do is make our content super relevant, because we've used lots of filters and parameters to narrow it down. I mean, we're starting from a base of 554 million, right? To come down to like 600 is.
Wow. But see, now what you just said, that's the key. That was going to be my next point, and that's the number one key to me of cold emails is relevance.
Yeah.
They have to be relevant to the person you're writing to.
Yeah.
Because if they're not, why would they bother reading them? I mean, these are going to business executives whose inboxes are overflowing to begin with. So if you're not speaking to them about something that's important to them, why would they even bother reading your emails? They won't. Yeah. Put it simply. So that's the thing. Number one is relevance. And then to me, I don't know. Do you want me to just start?
I mean,
I was thinking about like kind of going through the,
I mean, if you've got some principles that, let's say that someone who's never done cold email outreach before, ever, what I say to them is, take the top person off the list. Imagine you're writing an email to that person, and just before you click send, copy it and put it into the system, and now see if you can use placeholders to make that message relevant to everybody on the list. Now, that does work for some people. However, what I found is that the way in which some people naturally write their emails, Bill, is not the way to send an email. It's like a wall of text, and I'm like, whoa, stop. You are being far too salesy here. You're trying to sell your product. You're not trying to sell So are there anything, what about guiding principles? Do you have stuff that even beginners can get?
Yeah, for sure. Well, like you said, you're trying to sell your product. That's a mistake a lot of people make. cold emails aren't meant to sell a product. They're meant to sell a conversation.
Yeah. Boom. That's it.
Their idea is to open up a conversation to see if they're interested and if they would like to talk with you. The selling takes place after the email.
Yeah.
They're like, as I said, the emails, the sole purpose of the emails is to open up a conversation. And to do that, again, it gets back to the point of relevance. Okay, so some basic principles, starting like just going through the structure of an email. Your subject line obviously is important. It has to, get their attention so that they open it.
Yeah.
And to me, I mean, I've written for a lot of, besides Huron, I've written for 5 or 6 different lead generation email marketing agencies, as well as directly for companies. And so I've learned a lot from like what they find gets more opens. And typically it's shorter subject lines, like maybe 4 or 5 words at the most. And slightly vague, not misleading, because you don't want to, say something and then be talking about something completely different in the email, because then they'll be like, oh, well, this is crap, and they'll disregard it. But something short enough, but enough to arouse curiosity. You can write the subject line in the form of a question, or a lot of times I'll use like an ellipsis, to give a sense of, I'll complete the thought when you open the email, something like that. But again, it's short, slightly vague, tends to work best. And then your opening sentence in an email needs to speak to them. I can't tell you how many, when I hired for jobs, a lot of times people will give me samples of their emails that they've been using, and I'm like, oh, no wonder you're not getting any results. But it's they open with like, and I understand the reasoning. A lot of times they open with an introduction like, hi, my name is so and so, and I'm with so and so. That's great. But I like to instead open with something, again, I keep harping on this point, relevance. Ask them a question about a challenge or a pain point that they might be having, or make a statement. But again, is just something that, because that opening line also will come up as a preview, preview text in their inbox, on a mobile device. So, it has to pique their interest. Somebody saying, hi, I'm so-and-so isn't very interesting. So again, that's how I'll start off an email is, you got to, this involves, what I do is, you have to research and find out issues that these companies are addressing, and then talk about one in the opening sentence. And then maybe after the opening sentence, you can say, hello, this is, my name is, and, I'm with so-and-so, and I think you'll find this valuable. Oh, this is something I've just recently learned. And it's something that I found, it seems to be effective, starting off an email with the statement, like, I'm not sure if this is for you, but, because a lot, it piques people's minds. They're like, well, what do you mean it's not for me? What is he talking about? And it helps them to, continue on through the text. I don't always do it, but sometimes I will. It depends on who you're writing to. But again, getting back to that, this first line needs to catch their attention. And you catch their attention by talking about something that's important to them.
Yeah.
And then, saying who you are, and then following that with a couple of sentences about how you might be able to help them, and then asking for what you want them to do, either scheduling, asking them to get on a call, or, take a look at a demo, or if you're just trying to get them to go to your website, offer a case study or a white paper for them to check out. But that's it. And asking for a call, it seems like putting a Calendly link in there when you're asking for a call seems to help with responses. Anton is the first person that told me about that, and I've used it with a lot of other companies, but that seems to work well because it takes a lot. People aren't going to reply to an email, you know, especially if they don't know you. They're not going to go to the bother. But if you give them, you know, if they're interested and you give them a way to schedule a brief call with you, your responses are likely to be more. And a keyword there is brief. You know, you don't want to give the impression that you're going to try to tie them up on the phone for an hour either. It's the language, like, can we get on? Yep, it's good to be specific, using language like, when would you have 15 minutes available?
Yeah.
You know, please find your best time here, and give them a link. And speaking of links, that's also something, you know, that's important with cold emails. A lot of people want to put a lot of links in there to various things on their website. It'll get it sent to spam with multiple links. You know, one link in an email, in a cold email, is enough. Beyond that, it becomes too much. Also, images are not a good idea. You know, maybe your company banner at the top of the email, something like that is okay, but having images or videos embedded in the email is not good. It'll trigger spam filters. Well, I lost my train of thought there.
What do you?
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think of the level of familiarity between people? So one of my clients recently did something in an email which made me laugh, but it actually got her a response, which I thought was a bit daring, but she obviously just went for it. And she,
can you explain what it was?
She wrote, look, if I've not heard back from you, so what do you want me to do? Do you want me to give you a call back next week? Do you want me to, you know, blah, blah. But the last one was, if you're in a fight with a lemur, let me know and I'll call urgent assistance for you. And it was quite funny, but
that was me.
I didn't want to say who it was, Lauren. But
yeah, you're fine. No, it was like number one. Let's schedule a call this week. Number two, no, this isn't for me. Number three, I've been mauled by a lemur and need you to urgently call for assistance.
So my question here is what, I mean, do you have any rules with regards to familiarity? Is it sometimes bad to be too familiar in a large corporate setting, or do people like it? I mean, what's the rule?
I think the rule is there is no rule. I think familiarity is good. The example, and nothing against you, Lauren, but I've seen that done a lot, and sometimes it works, you know, and it is. And being funny is great, but you have to be careful with being funny, because sometimes what you think is funny isn't funny to somebody getting the email. But you know, if you could work in something that's amusing, I'm all for it. And also on the note of familiarity, you want to write them as in a conversational tone. You know, whether I'm writing to CEOs or, you know, or managers, whatever it might be, you know, you want to write them as if you're talking to them. And when I write, I have it in my mind that I'm face to face having a conversation with this person, and then I think to myself, when I act, particularly like how I like to do it is I write my sequence and then I leave it overnight and I come back to it the next day, and sometimes I'll look at it and go, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote that.
I've done that.
But you know, but other times I'll look at it and go, wow, this is pretty good. I'm shocked. the point being, I use contractions. I try to avoid overly formal language. Instead of saying I will, I'll say I'll. I apostrophe LL, that kind of thing. You write like you would talk, because overly formal language is it's kind of stilted, and it becomes difficult to read. And again, about like what you said earlier, Duncan, about a wall of text. Yeah, you want them to be text-based emails, but they need to be short. In a sequence of 5 emails, like for Huron, I would write sequences of 5 emails. Some companies like to do 6 emails. Some like to do 7. Personally, I think 7 is getting kind of up there. If you have to send them 7 emails and they're still not interested, they're just not interested. But they need to be short. Like I said, 120, 150 words at the most.
Wow.
Yeah, and like as I said earlier, at the beginning of this, that's a challenge to say something valuable in that short of a space, enough to pique their interest. Again, that's kind of like why I like doing it.
So we've got a bit of a rule, which is 600 letters, 110 words, and if it goes over that, you've got to be careful.
Yeah, you do. You do. Well, that's good. The shorter, the better. It really is. I mean, yeah, the 110. Sometimes I'll just it's funny when sometimes I write something, I'll look at it and I think that's too many words. But when I check the word count, it's like 100 words. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And also one thing too, you want to vary your pacing in your sentences. I used to try to keep all my sentences very short. And as a rule, that's a good idea. But you can have a sentence, you have to say what you have to say effectively. And if it makes for a little bit longer sentence, that's okay. But just make sure that the whole email isn't a bunch of run-on sentences. Brevity, erring on the side of brevity you're always safer.
So you've got to bury what inside the sentence? Did you say you got to bury what?
You can vary the length of sentences.
All right.
Like I used to try to make every sentence very short, but then it ends up
Okay.
Sort of a staccato rhythm to it, and that doesn't come across very well either.
What about bullet points? Now, some emails that I get.
I was going to say about that.
Do you think that they should include them or not? Do you think do you think bullet points are a red flag or?
Yeah, I generally no. I try not, because you don't talk to somebody in bullet points.
That's such a good point.
So I generally don't. But every rule is meant to be broken too. So occasionally I will, because it's an effective way of conveying information. I generally, though, will use bullet points more in longer, like nurture emails, more sales-oriented emails. But again, I just, writing is like, there's rules for writing, but then there's also ways to break the rules. I mean, I don't know if you've, I've recently finished Stephen King's book on writing. And you'll hear this from not just him, but everybody, how they talk about avoiding using adverbs, words that end in ly. And yet, if you read, and he talks about it, he devotes a whole chapter to it in his book. And then if you read one of his books, he uses adverbs all over the place.
Why would you avoid words that end in ly?
Well, because they tend to weaken the language. It's like it lends like you're almost, you're trying to qualify what you're saying. Instead of saying I'm happy to meet you, you're saying I'm really happy to meet you. Yeah, you don't need to say really or very. Just say what you want to say without the embellishment. It makes it more impactful, and it reads cleaner. Again, you have to keep in mind with cold emails, you're sending emails to people that don't know who you are. They haven't agreed to get emails from you. So you have a very small shot at getting them to read what you're writing. So the easier it is that you make it for them to read, the better your chances of getting your message heard or read. These are little things that help that.
So what would you say, what should a person expect from a well no, I've got a question before that. You kind of answered it in the last one, but do you think a cadence of about 5 messages, do you think that that's about right? About 5 messages, is that enough?
Yeah, I think, 5 seems to be, effective. And 6 works too, because there's kind of a rhythm to writing them. The first email in a sequence tends to be, it's more introductory in nature. You say who you are, and then, again, open with a pain point or a challenge, and then briefly talk about how you can help them. Then the second email, a lot of times I write it in the sense of backing up the first one. In fact, a lot of times I'll start it with adding on to my previous email. And then go into mentioning a point that maybe something you've already talked about or something that's related to it, and then briefly expounding on it a little bit, and then ending it, making it shorter. And then the third email in a sequence, you can start off with maybe something new. I don't want to keep saying the same exact thing in each email. So I'll start the third email with another issue or challenge that they have, talk about that, and that will be a little bit longer. And then the fourth email, again, a little bit shorter, and maybe reiterating some of the previous email. And then the fifth email, if that's going to be a 5 email sequence, I'll try to tie up everything. I'll try to go over, a summary of the things I covered in the previous one. Because also the thing you've got to keep in mind in an email sequence is you don't know if they've seen the previous emails. And so I like to write from a point where I'm going to convey some kind of valuable information in each email. And also, I like to avoid language of things saying like, I'm just following up, like that. You don't have to say you're following up, just follow up. Just say what you want to say. You don't need to preface something with I'm writing because, or I'm following up, or I haven't heard from you. Saying things like that, saying I haven't heard from you, it's almost like it's accusatory in tone slightly. It can be. So I really, like I said, the point being, you want to treat each email as if they haven't seen any of your other ones, and they're not even aware you've written them, so that if they do happen to open one, that there's something valuable there, and then they're like, oh, okay. Then they might realize I've gotten other emails. I wonder what they said in these previous ones, and maybe they'll go back and look at those too.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. I've seen the last email triggers a person to read through all the emails.
Yeah.
So let's say that you think that it's five steps in a cadence. You think that it's that same 110 to 150 words, writing it in a very personal style. Do you think that it's okay to say I think that do you think it's okay for me to talk about what I do in the first person, or should a person always write an email about what we do as a company? I mean,
well, you want to talk about what you do as a company, but you want to talk about it in the sense of how it benefits them. A good rule of thumb, that's another thing I see people do in emails a lot. They're like, we do this, we do that, and I do this, I do that. And but a good rule of thumb is anytime you find yourself using language like I, us, we, see if you can switch the sentence around to you and yours. Because the bottom line is it's about them. It's not about you. It's about how you can help them, but again, it's about them. It's basic human nature. People want to know what's in it for me. That's the core of any sales message is getting across the point what's in it for them. And if you're talking about I, we, it just becomes like, I don't care what your company does. How do you help me? How are you going to help me?
So you've obviously worked on a lot of campaigns. What should a person expect in terms of an open rate? A reasonable open rate and a reasonable positive response rate. What should a person really aim to try and achieve, do you think?
I think, like for example, with Huron, we would typically get, because first off, the list is a good list. And then with effective writing, open rates are going to be in like the 45% range or something. And then responses are going to be in the 25, 26, 27% range, like that.
And what about, so is that the 25% response rate? What about positive response rate? What should we expect in terms of people wanting to make booked calls from the campaign? What kind of percentage?
I would say probably. Well, if you're writing to a good list and you're offering something that's helpful, I would think the majority of your responses are going to be positive. Now, and getting back to opens though, I've written for some companies where we get like 60-65% opens, but still the response rate would still be in that more like that 20% range. What the difference? I'm not sure. I'm probably because they use longer sequences.
Yeah.
It would lower your percentage of responses.
So you think that a person should aim for a 20% positive response rate?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. If you're, again, if it's relevant and you're offering a valuable service, people are always looking to improve their businesses. And then save them time, save them money. And that's the underlying message to most B2B communications: saving time, save money. Do something, improve a process.
So when I talk to customers initially, what I tell them to expect is at least, or I tell them to try and aim for, is a 1% positive response rate. So for every 100 people that you reach out to, I tell them to try and get at least a 20% open rate and a 1% positive response rate. So then if you get one person from every 100 that says, yeah, they want to call, a positive response rate is, yeah, send me more information or let's jump on a call. If we get one from every 100 and we've got, like 1,000 contacts, you'll probably get 10 booked meetings. Now,
which is reasonable. Yeah.
So how do you get from 1% to 20%? There must be something that you are doing, Bill, that is like rocket steroids or something. Can you give me an example? Can you give me an example of a campaign where you've actually managed to get a 20% positive response rate? Give us a little bit of a look inside the magic cave.
To be honest, I don't. I could show you some of the campaigns I've done for Huron.
Are we talking about B2B? Yeah, talking about B2B.
Yeah, B2B.
And technology. So is it SaaS companies that you've been targeting, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I write for all kinds of B2B companies, but most of it is SaaS, tech companies.
And is it marketing people or sales people? Is it the owner of the business that you know?
It depends on who they want to, depends on what the service is. Sometimes I'm writing to the head of the IT department. Sometimes I'm writing to the CEO. If it's something like, for instance, I just wrote, I've worked with this one company for a variety of campaigns. They do procurement. They're offer procurement services. They have a list of vendors, and then they help streamline the buying process to help people with the businesses with their inventory, that type of thing. Everything involved with purchasing. And so they've had me focus the campaigns on sometimes purchasing managers, sometimes the head of the company, and then sometimes the finance and operations. It's the same services, but the wording is slightly different because you're conveying a slightly different benefit to the audience.
Yeah.
But now, on the flip side, I just finished a campaign sequence for a window washing company in Chicago.
Okay.
But that's going to like property managers and
Right.
to retail complexes, things like that.
How much do you do in terms of testing? So will you do 2 or 3 variants of step 1 and then just kind of almost generic step 2, 3, 4, 5, or will you keep digging and keep testing relentlessly until you get up to a 20% response rate? Or how does your testing work?
I'm not involved with the testing myself. I just do the writing.
But if a campaign, what I mean is if your email only gets let's say it doesn't get any replies at all, will you then test a different variant of it, or is that?
Oh yeah. I mean, companies I've worked with, yes, they've come back to me and like asked, like, okay, we're not getting real good results with this. Can you rewrite it? And I will.
Yeah, okay.
I'll try to take a different tack on it. We're mixing it up, starting off in a different way to try to find a different challenge to talk about. But sometimes it's just like you might think what an issue is with them, but really you don't.
So I think what I'm getting from this is that to summarize, I think what we're saying is that we need to keep the emails short, we need to keep them personal, and it's all about authenticity. It's important to make sure that we reference a pain point straight away and don't waste words. Make sure you get the point and don't get sidetracked by trying to fill out your email. Yeah. I think it's also important to remember, don't fill it with links. But on the other hand, make sure that you do put a call to action. You're selling the conversation. You're not trying to sell your product in one email. It's never going to work. Right. Okay. Nope. So, Vinit, before we go, Vinit, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Bill about your email sequence or anything that you're doing?
No, I think really, really useful. Thank you, Bill, for sharing. Really, really useful. And it just puts some context around what to focus on and what we should be kind of aiming for in terms of results and stuff. So really,
thank you. I appreciate it. I hope it helps.
Okay, Bill, I've really enjoyed. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with, a thought for the day that maybe you could leave us with?
Well, you summed it up really well. But again, I'd get back to the point: relevance. Make sure what you're. Make it the email about them, not about you, and make it so that you're talking about something that you think will be important to your audience. Yeah. Right. Oh, I lost sound.
Sorry. So if one of my customers wanted to reach out to you and use you, how would they do that? Have you got an email address or website, something like that?
No, you have my email address. It's bill@thesaunderscopywriter.com, or you can find me on Upwork. That's where I do all my work, is through Upwork. You can just do a search for Bill Saunders email copywriter and I'll come up. I get found real easily on Upwork.
And do you prefer to use Upwork, or do you like to work directly?
Actually, I prefer Upwork.
Because it deals with everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah, I love that. I love it too. Okay, right. Bill, thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it. It's been brilliant.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It gets me fired up. I enjoy talking about this. Thank you.
Okay, Bill. Have a great afternoon. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.